So part of my journey is in my Seeking Truth series is I've been just started studying the Bible. I think whether you believe in the traditional Christian Jesus and God, I think there seems to be lots of knowledge in there. And so I started with the book of Proverbs because it seems to be sort of a list of rules that are meant for us in this world and how we should live. It's basically a set of rules that should help bring God's blessings in my life, in my relationships, and my business. So here's what I learned, and I just wrote notes in the first 6 chapters of Proverbs. Now, Proverbs was written by King Solomon. King Solomon is known to be the wisest man to ever live. He's also arguably one of the richest men to ever live. Solomon was the wisest man to ever live, and he used his wisdom to become, super rich. That's great. So the first thing that I learned, and I thought about it really hard, one of the first lines in there is, fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And I didn't like that because it sounded like a tyrannical person, like a tyrant dad that makes you scared, or a tyrant boss that scares you into doing work, or a tyrant coach. They just don't seem to work. So if you dig a little bit into that word fear, it's actually translated reverence. It should be reverence. Reverence means, it's a better translation, it means deep respect and love. So to me that makes a ton of sense. If I have reverence for God, it would be the beginning of wisdom, which is deep respect and love. That's perfect. It's a lot better for me personally than being fearful. That doesn't sound like a very good relationship. Deep respect and love. So wisdom brings forth understanding, but only if you use it. How many of us know better and we go ahead and do it anyways? Proverbs is right off the bat basically says wisdom only works if you use it. I mean, I've hurt myself and my family and friends before by not being wise to certain things. Lots of places in Proverbs, they refer to wisdom as female. And I picture it as like the wise old lady, the grandma that sometimes you don't like to hear what she has to say, but she's right. So if you hear me say her, it could be wisdom that I'm referring to, like a wise old woman. And all of this too, that is, it's not if I have confidence in God, it's rather if God has confidence in me, is whether I'll receive his blessings or not. I have to be wise, I have to use it, I have to always be looking for it. It's as if you need to be like an animal, like a coyote or a fox or something, where your ears perk up when you notice things and you're always paying attention to wisdom and searching for wisdom. It talks a lot about knowing your morals and having that knowledge and not being fooled by somebody. Don't let some scatterbrain come and get you off track. Basically says moderate your days, the steps of your day, because you want to keep an eye out and you want to have discernment from right and wrong. And it talks about relationships and serving your, for example, your spouse, so my wife, and I should be doing it like it was when we first met. And love will have a tendency to grow cold if you're not continually looking to serve your wife and show her your love, or your spouse your love. Talks about investing your time with good people. It's a very common one. Don't cast pearls at swine. When you have the real truth, it's like, don't waste your time listening to nonsense when you know, even if it sounds enticing, when you know the truth. Proverbs also said God takes into account of what we do, and he's keeping track of us, and that should help guide us to know that God's with us and that he He's keeping track of it. And also he's basically telling us to be aware of what we're teaching other people. I don't claim to be a Bible teacher or anything. I'm just telling you what I've picked up from the first 6 chapters of Proverbs. It also says, know people by their fruit. This makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of shiny people out there, and they can maybe fool you a little bit, but the truth is you have to look, and you have to have discernment. You got to know, you got to see what they've produced. If they produced a good reputation, if they've helped people, if they're kind, those are all pretty good signs. Also, you got to make sure their values line up with God's. There's good people that says protect yourself from losing your truth to a man or tradition of man. There's all this weird stuff that goes on in the world, and it basically tells you don't fall victim to a tradition of a man. It's completely ridiculous. You don't need to follow any ritual or some man created some ceremony. It's nonsense. Don't bother. Yeah, and back to relationships is what you put in is what you get out. It's a good rule of thumb. There are exceptions, but that's a good rule of thumb to live by. It also says, again, don't cast pearls over swine, which means don't waste your time trying to change people that aren't willing to change. I've seen this lots in my life where you try to help. How many times if you had a heart-to-heart with somebody and you think you're doing good and you just rinse and repeat that week after week, year after year, sometimes people just don't want to change, even if they pretend they do. Don't cast pearls over swine. It also says, God takes into account what we do. We are his children, and I think that's what we do for our own kids. We sort of take into account what they're doing, and sometimes it's frustrating when you know what's better for your kid and yet they still don't listen to you, even though you know better. I think that's maybe how God looks at us, and with this book of Proverbs, he's telling us how to live, and sometimes we don't always live that way, and he's watching over us, and I'm sure sometimes he wants to whack us in the head and say, what are you doing? But he's taken into account what we're. It also says the wicked weave their own web, so sometimes it looks pretty shiny, but they're weaving their own web, and to be aware of your associates who try to lead you down those paths. With discernment. God also, in Proverbs, it's stated in there, he's not very fond of lazy people. I guess you could look at an anthill and find that there's no lazy ants in that, and he expects us to be hardworking people, hardworking for ourselves and hardworking for him and hardworking for our family. In other words, don't be lazy. Most people also don't like lazy people. I mean, if you got to get a job done, I've been in jobs where you're working side by side with somebody, and if they work as hard as you get the job done way faster, and they're lazy. It's annoying. So, makes sense. Yeah, God spends a bit of time speaking, or wisdom spends a little time speaking to lazy people. It's what good can you be to your kids if you can't take care of yourself? How is God supposed to reward you if you're not a hard worker? Again, it makes so much sense just on an earthly perspective. The harder you work, generally, the more fruits you will get. Basically says try to keep wisdom with you at all times, even in your sleep. Always seek it. God doesn't like hands that shed innocent blood, a lying tongue, feet that run to mischief. Wisdom also, it talks about wisdom can be such a huge time saver. I mean, how it prevents me from learning things the hard way. I don't know how many times in my life I've learned things the hard way. Even knowing better, sometimes I've learned things the hard way. I'm a perfect example of someone that should have read this and studied it a long time ago. It also says I can be a blessing to God and as well as other people with wisdom. Truth, it states in there, truth won't ever cause discord with the right people. So wisdom is truth. It makes a lot of sense that with the people that matter, it will never cause discord. It says wisdom is the most precious thing in the world. It's more important than silver and gold and any worldly material is seeking wisdom. Wisdom will knowing wisdom should provide all that for you, and at which point you'll be able to keep it. So that's what I learned off the first 6 chapters of Proverbs. I'm